three. Natalie.
Thank you very much, everyone. Tonight I'll be sharing one of my favorite stories, a story that I grew up with my childhood, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. In the great rolling plains of Wales, where a great many dragons and knights and bards have many a tale, lies a little town called Gelert. It lies at the junction of two rivers, just a tiny and quaint. Its inhabitants speak more Welsh than English, and there's nothing very much remarkable about this little town of Gelert. Nothing at all except a little raised mound by the side of the town. It's this little raised mound that our story ends and begins. And I hope you join me on this journey as I take you back to 13th century Wales. Back then, Gelert was in a quaint little town, with a bustling city with massive raised walls and a great tower that overlooks its inhabitants. In that little tower is the Prince of Wales. His name was Llewellyn. Now, Prince Llewellyn was greatly beloved by all his citizens because he was fair and just, not to mention handsome and strong. His people loved him very dearly, and he loved them just as much. Now, when Llewellyn was of age, he was betrothed to Princess Joan, and there was great elation to be had in the town. They were excited and elated because their favorite prince was getting married, and Llewellyn was as happy as can be. Eventually, Princess Joan gave birth to a little baby boy, but the birth was a difficult one, and she couldn't recover from it, not quite. With her dying breath, she told Llewellyn to take care of the babe in her stead, and with that she left him and the babe. For Llewellyn was heartbroken and devastated, and he was left alone grieving with his young infant son. Now Prince John of England had heard about his plight, and willing to help him alleviate some of that sadness, gifted him a pup from his litter of hounds. That pup was named Gelert, and he joined Llewellyn's contingency of pups. Llewellyn. Hello, excuse me. If you don't mind sharing, what is it you about? What are you guys talking about?
I was just thinking, like, you said it was a land full of dragons, and obviously, I've heard the dragon anymore after that. Let's put on the dragon. I want to hear more dragons.
I can understand that. In fact, the national flag of Wales has a dragon on it, but that's as far as the dragons go, because this story is well, it might be a legend, but it's more closer to fact and fiction.
So there's like 2 real dragons before?
Who knows? We will never know. It's not up for me to say. It's part of history, I think.
No wonder they put it in flags up.
That might be it. I think if you would like to talk about this more, we could talk about this after the speech.
Yeah.
So we've got. So Llewellyn had just met Gelert, his soon-to-be best friend. Gelert became the head of his hounds at the stables. Whenever Llewellyn called with his hunting horn, one blast and Gelert would be right there by his side. And they trolled many a forest of Wales together, hunting deer, game, boar, all sorts of hunting expeditions. Yes, please, madam. If you don't mind keeping your phone on silent for the duration of the meeting.
What's wrong with that?
It's one of my favorites, actually.
Can you share it?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
In the group chat.
Yeah,
okay.
chat.
Group chat.
Okay, that's very lovely. I'm sure it's a very good song, and thank you for sharing with us. I hope you share it with us afterwards as well. So Gelert became the head of his hunting stables, and Llewellyn brought Gelert to many a great hunt. But it was one day that when Llewellyn went on one of these hunts, and he blasted his hunting horn. Once, twice, thrice, but Gelert didn't appear to his side. So a bit disgruntled and annoyed, Llewellyn called off the hunt because he couldn't very well start the hunt when his favorite hound wasn't by his side. So with heavy footsteps, he trudged back into the castle doors. But lo and behold, who would he have seen at the castle but Gelert himself, sitting there at the hearth, looking at his master. But as Llewellyn walked closer and closer to Gelert, he realized that Gelert's muzzle and paws and fur were damp and dark, with great crimson liquid that dripped from his fur. And slowly, Llewellyn felt this terrible, horrible sense of foreboding. What could have possibly happened? Gelert barked happily and came out to his master, his dearest friend. But Llewellyn pushed him aside and followed the telltale trail of blood leading past the great castle hall, past the study, past the living, past the kitchens, all the way up the great stone steps to the nursery where his young infant son resides. With great trepidation, he pushed aside the heavy wooden doors and stared upon the horrible scene he saw before him. Llewellyn gazed upon shredded curtains and ripped bedding, carpets that were overturned, and worst of all, the baby's cot at the very edge of the room, overturned, and his little infant son was nowhere to be seen. Llewellyn's mind raced 100 miles, but he couldn't understand the scene he was seeing before him. He sunk to his knees in despair, and with his eyes closed, he heard the soft padding of feet behind him. He turned around, and what he saw was Gelert, with his jaw dripping with blood, looking at him with his great hound eyes. Devastated, Llewellyn gave a great mighty cry and held on to his hunting sword that he carried with him. It was him, it was Gelert, it couldn't be anyone else. Who could have done this but the hound that he trusted with all his life before this? With the great mighty cleave of his sword, he charged at Gelert and plunged his blade into his chest. Poor Gelert gave a whimper and a yelp, and stared at his master with nothing but love in his eyes as he passed away in his master's own arms. Grieving and miserable over all the deaths that had happened in his life, first his wife, his child, and now his best friend, Llewellyn lay heartbroken on the castle floor, when suddenly he heard a little cry and a whine from the corner of the room. Away from the overturned cot, underneath the shredded curtains, was a little kick and a little tumble, and out came his little infant boy. But how? He could have sworn all that blood that he saw strewn upon the room, where did it come from? So with the infant boy in his hand, he kicked the cradle, and underneath that overturned crib was a great big black wolf who had somehow managed to enter the castle doors and up into the nursery room.
Wait. So you're telling me a big black wolf snuck into a castle, which would normally have guards, go through all these people, able to climb up the stairs to the baby's room, and the little greyhound was able to win a fight against the wolf. I mean, wolves are huge compared to greyhounds, so how did it win at all?
Yeah, how did that work?
Is this story even true?
It's actually a folk tale that came from Wales. In fact, lots of adaptations were made from it. In fact, there's an Indian version and also a Chinese version of it. Mongoose in India and also as well as a deer, I think, if I remember correctly, in China.
Yeah.
So these are adaptations of a folk tale. Not necessarily true, but they all carry an important lesson, I think.
So what is the lesson?
The lesson is...
wolves can go into castles.
Must be. I mean, it sounds outrageous to me for something that big to be able to sneak in to a castle.
I mean, it is a worthy point. I did wonder as well when I was reading it up, but I think when I was younger, the important thing to be learned from here was the lessons from it. Not exactly the inner workings of folk tales and things like that. I think it's much like Aesop fables where the animals talk. I think it's important that we take away the lessons and the point of the story rather than the details of it.
Yeah, I just
But
read
maybe
up a
that's
bit
just
on it, and I realized that there is an inn that's set up right next to the grave that buried this dog and everything, and it seems more like a story told to bring people in so that he can make money at his inn instead of a actual lesson.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that because it was speculated it might have just been a tourist grab, but at the same time there's lots of adaptation of this story, so it's still a great tale to be told, and it's a story that's told over many generations and in Wales. So I think we're nearing the end of the story now, so if you've got any more questions, do approach me afterwards and we can discuss more about the plausibility of the tale.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sure. So as I was saying, they did find the wolf, which we have no idea how it got there, but there it was, and somehow Gelert was brave enough and his love was fierce enough for his master and his young master that he managed to win the fight against the wolf. But the price for his loyalty, bravery, and friendship was death at the hands of his own beloved master. Poor Llewellyn never smiled from that day on, and to honor his best friend, he dug a trench by the side of the castle walls and erected a great big mound to celebrate the life and death and to remind everyone of the dangers of believing without being sure of what is before your eyes. And it's to this day that in that little town of Gelert that mound lies. And in fact, the town of Gelert, when translated from Old Welsh, means Gelert's grave. And it's to this very day that Gelert's lie in that little grave in that town of Gelert. Thank you.